12:01. And I show that Eric and Bill and Gary and Diane from the board are here, and we have Rob Rounce in the audience. All right. Welcome, everyone. And I hope everybody's having a good day. This is the meeting of the Disabilities Commission, and today is December 12th, 2025. So real quickly, our agenda is a quick update on grants and next steps, approve a support letter to the Conservation Commission for a grant for the trails, a meeting update from Bill and Eric for the moment, public hearing and resource fair, update on accessible parking signs language from Bill and advocacy effort Bill, report on discussion with LPS staff about understanding differences and fostering inclusion in our community from Bill, Conservation Commission project future land use of town-owned parcel U12-14-0 from Bill, inquiry regarding grant-funded project to renovate Littleton Common from Bill, Marts Connect expired contract and transportation option from Bill and Eric, topic that was tabled from the last meeting, proposed town transportation study in 2026, and then an update on town's ADA Title II efforts. If I can start, a quick update on the grant and next steps. So we received the grant that we had applied for back in May from the state. It is $45,700, which is what we applied for, which is great. It has been signed by our town administrator. He signed on the 5th. The state signed it yesterday and returned it to us. Jim signed it on the 5th. The state signed it yesterday and returned it to us yesterday afternoon. So we are good to go with the contract. I do have a Zoom meeting with the Collins Group on Monday to find out our next steps as to how we can proceed. So the grant is for our designing an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. The full force of what we're looking to do has to be completed by June 30, 2026. So Collins Group will help us maneuver all of that and figure out what the next steps are and where we need to go. She is really good at doing this. She's helped many towns around us, and so I'm looking forward to hearing from her on Monday and what we need to do. Does anybody have any questions about that?
And I'm just checking that my microphone is working.
Oh,
yeah, I can hear you.
Maybe I just need to turn it up.
Oh no, I can hear you. I just wasn't being heard initially, but it sounds like it's working now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. The second thing on the item is approve a support letter to the Conservation Commission for a grant for the Braille Trail. I did take a walk out on the Conservation Commission at the Cloverdale Trail. So in talking with Tim as we did the walk, one of the things we had discussed was perhaps instead of just looking at the Cloverdale Trail for supporting that location, I had talked to them about, we will be looking probably in May to be doing some more grant processes. And one of the things I talked to them about is the fact that the boardwalk that is over there is not actually ADA compliant. So my concern is that if he's going to be doing a Braille Trail on Cloverdale, it's not really ADA compliant, and to put a Braille Trail over there probably isn't a good idea unless we make it ADA compliant with boardwalks. So in talking with a builder and looking at the whole trail, what do we think we should be doing as far as the Disabilities Commission is concerned? Do we make the whole thing ADA compliant with a Braille oh, not with a Braille trail, but with a boardwalk. And in looking at that, we could possibly look at a grant ourselves, the Disabilities Commission, for about $150,000 to $200,000. We don't want to take away from the trail itself, as you know, so that other people can't enjoy the outdoors. However, in order to make it ADA compliant, we really want to be able to have everybody be able to enjoy it, as well as those in the town. Everybody in the town should be able to enjoy it. So our first choice would be, if we're going to make it ADA compliant with the boardwalk, we'd have to rip that boardwalk out that's there and make that ADA compliant. So in doing so, making that the Braille trail doesn't make sense. If we're going to make the boardwalk compliant, to make that the Braille trail wouldn't make sense. So what they're asking us to do is just change it from the Cloverdale Trail being the Braille trail to just supporting a grant for a Braille trail. So if it is the wish of this board, if we could do a support letter to the Conservation Commission to support a grant that they will be writing for a Braille trail in Littleton.
So just so I'm clear, Diane, question for you. Like, it's the Conservation Commission that initiated this request. Like, they are, like, the idea of exploring, you know, creating a Braille trail came from the Conservation Commission. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's nice.
Yeah. And so in looking at it, I said, well, I didn't want to make a presentation to our committee unless I understood what they were looking to do. And so then when I get out there, I'm like, well, the boardwalk's not ADA compliant, so I can't support the Braille trail if our boardwalk isn't even ADA compliant. So I said, perhaps we could support a grant of a Braille trail when you figure out, you know, where you might be putting it. We'll support a Braille trail grant.
I'm in favor of, like, I mean, if they can go for a grant, I'm in favor of supporting that. But like, it sounds like Braille trail on Cloverdale sounds like it really flows off the tongue, but like,
right.
You know, I don't know. It sounds like that's not going to be or potentially not the actual solution, but.
That's correct. And so, you know, in walking it, it's a beautiful trail. But like I said, if you don't have it ADA compliant with the boardwalk, it makes no sense to do the Braille trail there if it's not going to be compliant right from the start. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll chime in. I agree completely with what you, thank you, Diane, for doing that and assessing that, because this is what comes up a lot. It's going to be the theme of the day, themes of everything we do. It seems like even when there's really good intentions and effort, the details matter. And so I support exactly your position there. If there's a lot of boardwalks there, and if they're not ADA compliant, then it doesn't make sense. But I'm somebody, I've lived here over 20 years, and I used to go on the conservation trails almost every day when I could drive. Since I stopped driving, I pretty much almost stopped. But I know there's tons of potential options. So I think assessing what might be the most fit. And it's not just another thing to consider in addition to what you're looking at, which is really important, other components that are ADA compliant. The other thing is, like, where is it located? Is it accessible for the blind and visually impaired community to actually access the parking lot? You know, like that location, I would probably never walk it, although I would love to walk a Braille trail, right? And so if I can get to it by some sort of transportation or walk there or something, so maybe ones that are maybe in a better location that's accessible to get to too. That's not a thing to just throw in the mix in the consideration. But I'm in support of them exploring that they didn't, when I spoke to them, they didn't mention something about that. So I'm glad that they're taking that initiative, and I think that's really encouraging, and we should work with them to support them in finding a solution, because it'd be great if this town had one.
Gary, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm in support of the grant, what they're trying to do. I was just trying to think of, starting small. The only place I can think of that might be conducive to our first shot at a Braille trail would be probably Whitetail. It's a smaller parcel, does have a lot out front. But that's just, I'm trying to think of, where we can start, for something like that, which would make the most sense. And there's other smaller trails that we could potentially do something like that with, because the much larger trails, obviously, in some of the bigger areas are going to be more difficult and take a lot more work. But I would like this just to see this in effect and see, the costs and what it actually looks like, so people can get an idea why we're doing it and what it, in a smaller parcel might make sense. But no, this is great that the conservation came forward with the request, though.
Okay. So if I could ask for a motion.
So you look for a motion to support
A grant.
a grant for
a letter of support for the grant.
a letter of support for the grant requested by Conservation Commission for it's specific to Cloverdale. Is that
No, we don't. We're
In
going to
general?
take that. Yep, in general. Yep.
we have to take that out? So in general,
Yep. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Bill. All right. So vote Eric,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Gary,
Barry's aye.
and Diane is an aye. So it's unanimous. Great. Thank you so much. And I will talk to Tim this week. I'll get the letter to him, and then they'll go from there and explain everything that we've discussed today and let them understand where we're coming from as well, and give the suggestion of Whitetail and stuff, maybe starting smaller. That's a great idea. All right. Update on accessible parking sign language, Bill.
Okay. I could spend the whole meeting on this, so I'll try to be as brief as I can.
I should mention I do have a hard stop at 1, just to put it out.
Yeah, no, I'll try to be quick. All right, so you already know about what the goals here. We're trying to get the language updated in the bill. There's a typo that I caught, but no one else seemed to, even though it seems so blatantly obvious. I don't get it. But I reached out to our district representatives, RCRO's office, as well as Senator Eldridge way back in June, and they just didn't really follow through. Eldridge responded right away, and they recognized the problem and said they would look into it, and then never heard from them again. And then our CRO's office didn't respond, but apparently what I've learned more recently in talking to them, they did try to actually bring forward an amendment. But unfortunately, the group that was lobbying for this bill, the ARC of Massachusetts, talked them out of it. So that was there's a weird twist to this whole thing. And I don't know all the truths, but I've heard some interesting things. But the Meeting of the Moment event that we're going to talk about as well, thank you for supporting us going there, and Eric for bringing it up. That was a pivotal shift in this effort, because by speaking publicly about it there, I've got a lot of people's attention, and I was able to get directly connected to Representative Tarski, who's from the Norfolk district, who was there at the event. He helped me get me in touch with the governor's office. Tony Wolf, who is the commissioner of Massability, was there, and she ran over to Offered Support, and we've actually met since then. She's fantastic. So at least through this effort, I'm actually learning about politics, and I'm learning about who the leaders are in the disability community, and gaining some connections with them. So that's I guess the good part of it. It's been a stressful trying to get attraction on this. Unfortunately, I did meet with a liaison to the legislature from the governor's office. Actually, I should take a step back. So what happened was, at that event, I spoke about it, and then the very next day, they rushed to vote and passed it in the House. And it had already been passed in the Senate. And that's another thing that lobby group pushed to do, because they were there. So their goal is to get this bill signed. They're not really concerned with it being corrected, because their goal is to get the language out. They're not really concerned with the language on the signs. So they got their goal, but unfortunately, it's more complex than it sounds. Obviously, our concern, and my main concern, is making sure that if they're going to pass a law, that they have the appropriate language on the signs. But I'll just, in short, because I could go all over the place on this, and I could easily do that just thinking it through. I met with RCRO's team I met with Anita from that team. I met with Immaculate from Eldridge's team. They're, after dropping the ball and not responding, they've really stepped up. So I can say positive things about how they're working with me now to support this. They both drafted a joint letter and sent it to the individuals would potentially be what's on a conference committee. And if they have a conference committee, that would be an opportunity to amend it before it gets to the governor's office. So their steps in doing that is crucial to the potential of resolving this before it's signed into law. I've spoken to Denise Garlick from who's the commissioner of the Commission on the Status of Persons with Disabilities, who also ran that event. She was remarkably amazing about giving advice on what to do, how to approach this. So I wrote a letter to the Senate President as well as the House representative there for our state, because they might potentially review it. And I also, as I said, met with the governor's team. The governor's team basically said, you're the only one complaining about this, so you need a public sort of outcry for this to be addressed. So I did write a public letter and posted a video on YouTube and shared this with other people from disability commissions that I know, as well as some other state officials, including reaching out to the Mass Office on Disability. And so they responded. I think it's Naomi Campbell responded. They're very concerned about this, actually. And actually, their concern and involvement might help get this resolved because, and I'll be short on this, the one problem is that if this bill is signed into law, whether they get the language accessibility right or disability is the word that changes, there's no provisions for how to enforce this. So, for example, if it changes, the bill gets signed into law, that's the required language. And so if the signs don't have required language, law enforcement cannot issue citations for people parking there illegally. So essentially overnight, once the bill's signed in line, all the accessible parking spaces in Massachusetts will not be enforceable. And that's a logistical problem. And they would only be enforceable if they change it to language at this point that's inappropriate, and it would cost tens of millions of dollars. And there's no plan or funding, or they never considered this because they didn't even think about this in the bill. So there's no plan and provisions in place to take advantage, address this if it were to sign into law. So there's a lot of things they're looking into, their lawyers, to see. So that's probably why it hasn't been signed into law yet, and it's being held up. So that's the gist of it, I guess. So there may be a chance to get it amended based on our representatives' actions, and myself and others. A lot of people have been writing in asking for support on that. And then, this legal thing might help impact it too. So we'll see. I don't know where it's going to go from here. Everyone I talked to said it could go any number of directions, from being signed into law tomorrow to being dragged out for a while, or who knows what. So I'll keep you posted. But any questions on that before we move on? Okay.
No, thank you so much.
I have one, Bill. It sounds like there's no like sense, it's early to feel like there's any sense of how possibly soon this could impact like signs in our town, right? Like, I mean, that's further out than we can see right now.
Well, no, it could be a matter of minutes, days. Like tomorrow, it could be impacted. So I don't know, because I was told, this is the thing, I've been told so many different things, I don't know what to believe. I was told the deadline of July 31st is they have to get this bill signed or not. I was told it might be longer. I was told that it literally could be signed by the governor today, tomorrow, any minute, And so once it's signed into law, then all of a sudden we could go to our public works department and say, you got to change the signs. So yeah, as soon as this actually bill is signed, that's when we can take action. But until then, we can't really do anything, or shouldn't do anything. Yeah. So we'll see. Everyone I've spoke to agrees this is a problem and a significant one, and they realize they made a mistake. No one disagrees with that, other than the ARC of Massachusetts, that, well, they agree with it, but they're more concerned with getting the glory of this bill being passed, and they don't want it being held up because their donors and the people they report to, they already claimed victory on it, and so they don't want to turn back. So, but other than that, everyone else agrees, and so I'm hopeful it'll get resolved, but I don't know how at this late stage they can correct it, and I think a lot of the people involved don't know either, so they're trying to figure it out.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't enjoy politics, I'll tell you that.
Welcome to our world.
This is my first and last experience, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Okay. Any other questions? Or all right. Discussion with LPS staff and understanding.
Okay, so one of my goals that I mentioned was in coming in here is to take the work that I do outside of this town and, you know, things I'm passionate about and advocating for, and do that maybe in this town. And so my area is education and advocating around language and making inclusive environments, that kind of thing. And so I was curious about what was going on in the public schools, but I also, at the Meeting a Moment event, met some amazing people from an organization based out of Newton called Understanding Our Differences. It's a nonprofit that works with public schools, or K-12, actually elementary schools specifically, and developing curriculum that helps people understand difference around disability. And so I talked to them because I thought their program was fantastic and I really liked the design of it. And so they actually invited me. I'm going to be just outside of this. I'm going to be working with them and going in as a public guest speaker, because they bring in people with lived experience to talk to elementary school kids, to ask all their curious questions about difference and disability. And then they have curriculum that goes around it. So, and talking to them about that, they were asking what's happening in Littleton, and I was curious as it was. So I reached out to two individuals that were really fantastic to meet with and talk to. Beth Steele, who's the Director of Teaching and Learning, and Lynn Snow is the Director of Student Services and Equity Coordinator. I told them about that program, and I told them about my interests personally, and, you know, how in creating some better culture in this town around disability, and, you know, how we can support it in the public schools. And I heard about what they're doing, and they're doing a lot of amazing things already. So I'm really excited to hear that they're really thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, including disability, in many ways. And they were really eager to learn more about that organization. So that's about all I had to share. But hopefully we're going to continue the conversation and see ways we can support each other and, you know, fostering that culture that I'm talking about.
So will they be trying to join that group, or?
Well, there's a curriculum, and that I sent them the information. If they're interested, I will introduce them to Jenny Costa, who's the Director of Understanding Our Differences. And then if that's the case, they can either bring them in. There's different options. They could either adopt their program and run it themselves, or they could have them do it, or not at all. But I think it's the kind of thing that Littleton could do. They could do it on their own if they wanted. But if they're interested, I'll put them in contact with them, and, you know, that they'll handle it, kind of a thing. I'm really more of a sort of connecting people that might share, you know, have mutual interest and an opportunity for addressing this stuff in a way through a group like that, rather than us trying to do it or something like that. But yeah.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions? Okay. Conservation Commission project, future land use of town-owned parcel.
Okay, so yeah. That's something that you may not be aware of. I know about it because I live in the neighborhood of Long Lake. And so there's the parcel of land that refers to as along Lakeshore Drive, which is a large part of the waterfront where the road is. That's town-owned land. But historically, I guess, well, I know for sure from living here, for as long as I've lived here, and many decades, some individuals have had docks and boats stored there, even though it's not private land. And so the Conservation Commission now is trying to figure out what's the fair and equitable thing to do there. And how to manage that land. And so they've had many public hearings that I've watched, just to see where they're going with it. And I saw that in the last one, they were presenting a lot of different options. Some are just removing everything, but there's some of them involve putting in docks or boat storage things. And so once I realized that, I reached out to Tim to just say, hey, make sure that the Disability Commission and just access in general and inclusive design is part of whatever you do. And if we can support you in that, let me know. And so he put me in touch he said, well, you should really be, it wasn't his decision what they do. So it was really, I had to speak to the co-chairs. So he set up a phone call with me and Chase and Sarah, who are the co-chairs.
Yeah.
And I just basically told them, whatever you do, it better be not only ADA compliant, but you really got to think about safety, public safety, just universal accessible design in general. And just as someone who knows that area very well intimately from being around there for 22 years and walking around there, anything they try to put in there that involves people pulling up with vehicles and parking, and then it's heavily walked, it really needs to be considered in a lot of detail just to make sure it's whatever they do is going to be safe for everybody as well as accessible. And I also just encourage them to consider reaching out to other departments, because If they're going to be doing any renovations or changes to that space, they should also be talking to Public Works or other individuals that maybe have some sort of interest in this, because that road's in really bad shape as it is. So if they're going to be doing any kind of infrastructure changes, maybe that's an opportunity to get a sidewalk or pave that area. And basically the whole theme of my thing was let's make it, whatever we do here, whatever decisions, because it's up to them to decide what they want to do, but whatever it is, let's make sure we do it in a way that's considering safety and access, as well as, the health of the lake, which is really important because it is a protected pond. So that was really just me just saying, hey, make sure we do this. They said we'll make sure that to present it to us. So once they're go through their process and they've decided what they want to do, I'm based on what they said, I'm hopeful they will reach out to us, me, you, whatever, about coming to one of our meetings and sharing so we can get feedback. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Any questions on that?
Sounds good.
The select board's very well versed on that property. We've had meetings on it as well, and with conservation.
Yeah, I think I saw one of those. That was the first one I watched. So yeah, I just want to make sure that we're considering all the important details there.
Great. All right, grant-funded project to renovate the common.
All right, this is another one. I only know about this because I was reaching out to Senator Eldridge. It then became an advertisement in my social media, Senator Eldridge. So there was one of these advertisements, I think it was on LinkedIn or something, that showed a picture of him with our select board holding a big cardboard sign, cardboard check. And it says something about renovating Littleton Common. If the community has any input, please share, or something like that. So as in keeping with the things we've talked about in the past, where there's any kind of major projects, I want to make sure that we're considered in giving feedback on that, particularly because it's related to the thing I brought up at the last meeting, which was, it'd be great if we could be part of the King Street Common project, but most importantly, and related to that, was the infrastructure around it, like the Common, for example, and how people can get from the Common safely to that space. And so that particular area of the Common I don't know what the plans may be or what they're thinking about in that renovation, but it is a very dangerous place to drive or walk. Actually, someone was killed on the crosswalk there just less than a week ago, right there on the corner of Goldsmith and King. And so as someone who walks there and someone who used to drive there and have seen a lot of accidents and things, I just want to make sure we're not just thinking about, basic safety, but sight lines and different things that'll help make that people navigating that space. And me personally, if I were to walk to the center or to the King Street Commons, that's how I get around walking. So I don't want to be taken out like that person was last week, just trying to get some groceries or something,
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be great if we could be part of that, wherever that part of the process or whatever that is. I just want to, I don't know, as the first I heard of it. So I want to make sure it's on our radar. That's all.
Okay. Sorry, Rob, I didn't see your hand raised. Did you have a question?
Yeah, question with regard to Bill and the sidewalk around the Long Lake Lakeshore Drive parcel. I just want to share that according to DPW Director Jan Lee, that Lakeshore Drive was either going to be up for this year being repaved or next year. And because of the discussion that Bill's aware of is underway, Gary, et cetera, maybe all of you, I just want to throw out that I'm curious, would you folks be interested in having the sidewalk? Bill, I've been taken by your comments previously with regard to how dangerous that road is with all the potholes in it, and then with the traffic that comes on, that you're moved off to the side, and the side has its own set of significant challenges because of the gradation differences between the roadway and then whatever is, a foot and a half off the roadway, and it's very unstable and very problematic. So because I don't know where Conscom's going and I don't know where DPW is going, I just want to throw that out I think it's happening in the next year, and I think Conscom is likely to come forward with whatever they decide to do in that property. And I see it all connected in a way, and just want to encourage that discussion. I'm very much for the safety of that roadway because it's so extensively used, and I don't want this opportunity to pass, because once the opportunity passes, it's so much harder after the fact. So that I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, I'll just respond to that. Yeah, thank you, Rob. I agree completely. I don't know if a sidewalk is the answer, just because I've looked at it, walked that space recently with that sort of perspective. I'm not an expert enough to know, because there's like power lines and things that would be right against the road, and so there'd have to be some assessment as to the feasibility of that. But I like an idea of it in general, and certainly whatever can make that space more safe to walk. I mean, yes, the potholes. I had a pretty nasty fall in March. Because of it. So I've stayed away from that area for the most part, just because of it. But so, yeah. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate your support.
All right, anybody have any questions about or comments about the Littleton Common
Looks like
project?
George.
George, go ahead.
You hear me?
Yep,
Sorry that I'm late. I was
That's
in
okay.
a meeting there with State Representative Jim Maserio there.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Wait, you
Trying
could get a
to-
meeting with Jim?
I'm just trying to catch up here with
Sure.
what's going on here. I was wondering, before we close out, you could give me a brief update there from what I missed there with the grant and so forth.
Sure. So the grant, we received the grant for 45,700. The work has to be completed by June 30. I am meeting on Monday with Collins Group, in which they will give me next steps as to what we need to do and how we need to proceed. It is for the self-evaluation and transition plan. But it has been signed by both Jim Duggan and the state, so it has the contract has been signed and returned, so we are good to go and get started as soon as we know what we need to do.
So that's June 30 coming year?
2026, yep.
Yeah.
They don't give you a lot of
on
time.
that money, huh?
They don't give you a lot of time, but
Okay.
we should be able to get it all done.
Yeah,
I
that's
I
good.
have the full confidence in us that we will get it done.
All right. Thank you very much on that.
Sure. So then Mark Connect,
Yeah,
Eric and Bill.
I'll leave it to you, Eric, if you want to start with that. I can talk. I actually used transportation this morning, so I can give personal feedback, but I know, and the next item might be related to this item. So I don't know, Eric, maybe best to just lead this one.
Yeah, I was going to suggest like I think there's probably overlap. Like I noticed this after I added, the proposing a transportation study in town for the coming year. But yeah, I think, I have maybe expressed previously in a previous meeting that, I was a little distressed to learn that the MART connects, I hadn't realized ahead of time that, it was a grant funded thing that was going to go away. And, I did get a lot of great use out of that service. And, I think some of my more challenging experiences with scheduling rides, kind of using the town van and the dispatch service, are somewhat documented. I feel like I've shared those previously. So, rather than, being alone or a small group of people kind of expressing our concerns about this, what I wanted to suggest was maybe in the coming year we could take on, and I'm happy to take a lead on this, but more of a organized study to better understand the town transportation utilization and patterns like within our community, right? Like who's using it, just kind of connect with, what the use patterns have looked like for the town's transportation. Because, when Mark Connect went away, I don't have any sense, on how long our contract with, Crosstown, or whatever the dispatch company is, like, what that contract duration is, or, I would just like to be more informed on kind of the transportation or the paratransit picture in our town, so that then we could maybe make some informed suggestions or recommendations to make sure that whatever the transportation solution in town is, It is one that is conducted with dignity and respect for the rider, and kind of prioritizes the things that we as a committee would prioritize, right? So initiating a formal process rather than contacting and expressing concerns and having them say, we don't hear these concerns from a lot of people. So I thought a more formal approach to it might be warranted, and perhaps a good idea. So that's what I wanted to put out as a possible suggestion for the year ahead.
That's a great idea.
Madam Clerk.
Sure.
Madam Chair. With regards to our request there, I don't know if that's going to cost money to send out, or how you plan on sending out, whether you're going to send it through the mail or try to do email or whatever the avenue of approach to do the survey. I would first say perhaps maybe he needs to sit down with Liz, and Liz should be able to give him across the board where people in the town are putting in requests because they're on that program. And I would think that she would be able to enlighten him with regards to what the map looked like as far as Littleton citizen getting transportation requests.
Well, that's a good idea. I think a couple of things. We could probably put something in the light and water bill. I know not everybody gets a light and water bill. We could put something in there. We could probably put something in, ask Liz if we can put something in that monthly newsletter. I know that the library puts something out. We could probably put something in there. We could also put something in the town's monthly newsletter. The newsletter costs nothing. The light department, it would probably just be us printing it, which we could probably print here. And then I think that if we ask Liz, it would probably, if we just put something in there and ask, what would the cost to, add a small little blurb in there. And then if we put something on a Monday night, a couple Monday nights, a select board meeting, like, please, this is what we're looking for, the information we're looking for. So people that are watching the select board meeting, and then maybe do a quick PSA with LCTV.
Sure.
A podcast or something with them, and say what we're looking to do. So it would avoid much cost. In my opinion, we'd probably avoid having to do a full mailer.
Yeah, I'm very much of the same mind. I mean, Liz was going to be, if we have agreement, Liz would have been my first call, and
yeah.
I'm also on the same page with, keeping little or no cost associated with this as we can, but also tapping into the existing resources that the town has to better understand this picture, right? So, yeah, I'm of the same mind on that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I like Eric, have been using Mark Connects and really depended on it. And lately I've been going to physical therapy appointments. It was fantastic. So when that ended on November 11th, it's been a little bit tricky figuring out how to get around. I actually used the town transportation service this morning because it's the first time in a long time. I've tried many times, but they usually can't accommodate because it's after 4 or it's a Tuesday or what. It's you really have to get into the schedule. It's a coin toss. In most cases, it doesn't work out. But today it did. But even in it working, it got me to my appointment on time. And then I had to wait. I was scheduled to wait 40 minutes after my appointment to get picked up. But then they still didn't show up. And then 15 minutes after my pickup time, so this is a good hour after I was done with my appointment. I was already in an Uber because I gave up because I had to come back to this. I would have missed this meeting. And they called and said it'll be another 30 minutes. And so I would have been there over an hour and a half or something waiting. So, it can work it can be an option, but it's not dependable. I wouldn't use it for something where it's time sensitive or critical to be there. And then they don't do anything after 3, and certain days of the week they don't have a van, and so it is limited. That's what Mark Connects filled that gap. So
For
anyway,
sure.
that's just a little
And
testimonial.
just to add my testimonial, since we last met as a committee, actually it may, because we didn't meet in November, but anyway, since like in the last month, I've used called and scheduled a ride. Since the expiration of the Mark Connects program, I have returned to using the town van. And out of the 2 experiences I've had since that time, which was November 14th that Mark Connects expired, I had what I would call an improved experience the first time, like the very first time after Mark Connect expired. They were cordial and polite, and were responsive, and I was able to get a ride scheduled, and it went smoothly. And then the second time, I was not able to get a ride scheduled, and I was informed actually for the first time after over a decade living in town that I should be calling on the 3rd Monday of every month to book all my rides for the following month, because they book up quickly. And I've never heard that in my life the whole time I've lived here. So just, not consistent and, not always reliable, as Bill said. So just to add that for the record.
Yeah, I got that same spiel. It basically, they open up this calendar like on a certain day of the month for the next month. And I think people call that day to make sure they get it, because, there's only one vehicle, and a lot of people we'll find out through the survey, hopefully more, but I think there's a lot of people that use it. Yeah,
for sure. Sure.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Through you to Gary. How many vans does the town have in operation, the COA?
2, I believe.
One is brand new. It's really nice. It's an electric.
Yeah. We, I'm kind of taking notes on some of this, because this problem or this challenge is only going to get bigger. So, I think if we can get in front of this, we need to budget for this. We need to get a more comprehensive look at our transportation strategy for the citizens that need that, because it's only going to grow, and we're not meeting the need now. So we've got some work we can do here. We might have to create a subcommittee specific to address this issue, and so that's going to be probably something that I'm going to try to formalize with the select board to see if we can create a subcommittee to identify these needs, but also come up with a solution that's probably going to end up having to have a budget line much more rigorous than the one we're currently we're not putting enough towards this. It's obvious just listening to your 2 testimonials that we don't. This problem, if I went to every citizen that uses it, or those that don't because they don't know that it exists or can't rely on it, it would be staggering. So
I think I've mentioned before, Gary, I know that, just from some co-riders that I have spoken with previously that were going to the same Tai Chi class as me, like, I know that we do have some residents that are suffering in silence, like, they dread if they have to call. So like, it is a little bit more pervasive than it might appear initially, but, and part of my thinking, not that I'm gunning for crosstown dispatch or whatever, but like, if we're devoting however many funds to a service, and it could equally go to something like Mark Connects that was a pleasant and, like customer first oriented experience versus one that is more challenging. Like, we can be a little more thoughtful about directing those funds. So like, part of my thought with this potential study is to kind of, get that picture clarified, if that makes sense,
Well, I have a comment here, Gary, to you with regards to this point of booking transportation on a particular day for the following coming month or whatever the case is. I don't know where the COA, Health and Human Services, is putting that information out to people that may be being called there to tell them, well, there's nothing in the newsletter about transportation that if you're going to sign up or whatever the case is, you need to call on this particular date. So if this is the case with the transportation, that needs broad dissemination throughout the town here, letting people know that, because if this is an element of surprise that somebody said, well, you should have called when, that doesn't cut the mustard. We need to be better proactive than that.
Yeah, I could speak to that specifically because I did call, as I said, I had an appointment today. So when I called, and part of the reason I called is I was reminded, oh yeah, I got an email. So I'm guessing everyone, I don't know if you got it, Eric, too, but I got an email this week reminding me of that. So because I'm listed as somebody who is eligible for those services, reminding me of this, there's something of the month, was it 29th of the month, you got to do this. And then I was calling them anyway, and they mentioned it on the phone too. It's not that you have to call on a certain date, George, sorry. It's that you have to, there's a certain day of the month when the next month's appointments become available. So it's the first time you can actually book that next 30 days or whatever, something along those lines, right? And so they're just letting people know that's the day when you can start. But any day after that, you can book it as long as the day before you have to take the ride, as far as I understand it. The only catch is that it may be booked. And so they mentioned that date is the first available time you can book for that following month, to let people know that if you want to make sure you get an appointment, you need to book it that 30, 60 days in advance, whatever it is. That's not how I generally making my appointments when I need to go to the doctor. It's, it's like something I'm booked the night before or that day sometimes. So a lot of these things don't work out, but
I agree with that.
And just one more thing I have to say about this challenge that we have in our community. It's where we're located, right? That's going to force our town to have to be more involved in other communities, right? So for example, those of us that are legally blind, you can get access through the RIDE program, but it only goes as far as Concord. So the whole Boston area, all the way to Concord. And then there's like Worcester has a radius too. But we're like in between those two. And so there's services that the state supports that we could have taken advantage of, but it doesn't come as far out to here. So that might even be something to explore, is try to convince the RIDE program to, extend a little, because supposedly they only service communities that have MBTA stations. And I asked them, well, what about Littleton? We have a station, but there is a certain radius around Boston they stop at. So anyway, it's a unique challenge, unfortunately, where we are. There's a lack of taxi services. Ubers are spotty. It's just, we're in a spot where the transportation is just challenging.
So this is, brings up something you brought up earlier about getting in touch with our legislators on things as well. Maybe through the chair, that when you have some of these requests that you're trying to get information from Jim Marciero's office, Jamie Eldridge's office, I can be charged with reaching out to them. I mean, I actually have their phone numbers in my cell phone, so we're constantly in conversations with them on different topics around other communities and things. So
yeah,
probably I can get more traction. But Jim Marciero, is I guess we'll kind of strike while the iron's hot. He's the undersecretary right now of transportation, I think, at this year. So I think reaching out to him on the two issues that the big issue that you just brought up, the more regional issue, on how hard would that be to extend the range of that service 5 miles or whatever it takes to cover Littleton, right? So those are things that I think in his position he can directly affect. I'm hoping so.
And how much of a caveat would that be in his cap?
Yeah, yeah, true. I know how they operate for sure, but
yeah,
they're every time that I see them, and I'm going to see them tomorrow at the Toys for Tots event at the police station. So they're both going to be there, and there'll be cameras there, and those are the times that I like to speak to them. Unfortunately, that's what politics. And I know why, Bill. I know why you can't stand being.
No, I get, yeah,
but that's what it takes sometimes, and that's where you'll get Anita to get her attention, and she'll take the notes, and it kind of forces them to get back to us. But they're usually pretty good when when we reach out to them directly. So,
Yeah.
so it's unfortunate that you weren't able to get a response in a timely manner. You kind of, it's not a good experience for you, and that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it did stink. I mean, it should have been something where they went, "Oh yeah, you're right. We'll take care of it," and I'd have to do nothing, and I wouldn't have to. But it is what it is. What I have learned, the key thing in politics is, you're all alluding to, is that, if the public isn't concerned about it, if there's no large enough, people noticing, then that's not a concern. So, like, one of the things like that bothered me just is that in voting for that in the House, both Arciero and Tarski both knew, because I know for a fact they now admit they knew about the problem in the bill, but they still voted for it. So there wouldn't be one of the two, it was 154-0 vote, right? So, and I get it. If they were that one vote, and the name of the bill was to remove archaic language around disability out. So most people don't know the nuance of the problem. So I think if I were in their shoes, I would have voted against it just on principle, knowing it needed to be fixed. But they went that way, and even the governor's office said, we would sign this into law even though it's flawed, just because no one else is complaining. So then I have to then pull public support to get attention, right? It's just the way it goes. But and that to say, I appreciate all your support, Gary, with all these different topics. But I know that reaching out, I know if Eric or I were to reach out on this topic or anything else, I think I'll get a response now, because I had direct contact with Anita, and she's been very responsive as of late. So at least if they get my email, they're going to reply now, I think.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they've been again, I can't say enough. They've really 180'd. They've really been very responsive to everything.
No, and you got to remember, locally, they don't have huge communities. That's why they're representing a small amount of towns. So we can get their ear on these things. And when I talk about the larger picture one that you just brought up about the regional services for transportation, because Jim is the undersecretary of that right this year, that's why we can probably facilitate something like that a little more aggressively.
And we should use this King Street Commons as leverage on that, saying, there's going to be 1,100 units going in here, low-income housing, I believe, right? So there's going to be people there that need transportation too, and people coming to Littleton and going from there, that spot. It's going to be a destination and a home for people. So,
and we've got a lot of work to do down on the Common, and we've been aggressively addressing it with the crosswalk situation and trying to make that a much more walkable experience for everybody. But
I appreciate that.
As you know, it's two state roads run right through there, and that's what makes it difficult for us. We have no control. That's where
there's different things. There's like the church, the sign for the church. If you're pulling down Goldsmith, look, you can't see the traffic because of the street, the sign of the church, right? I don't know if you have this jurisdiction to tell the church to move their signs so people can actually see traffic. There's a lot of it's nuanced, but we can hopefully get into it and look at it at some point and address it. Yeah.
And for whatever it's worth, and Bill, I know you know this, but when they are responsive, like when Anita and others are responsive, like being, very, very appreciative goes a long way. Like being very clear that on our behalf, like we really appreciate what they're doing and all that. Like you can't express too much gratitude, I don't think, in these things, So.
No, I agree. And I can totally, I've made those efforts, but I'll try to keep that in mind, because sometimes that slips through the cracks. I agree.
For your information, Madam Chair, I did talk to Jim this morning about a crosswalk light there at that Baptist church. I told him that crosswalk coming from Goldsmith there across over to the other side of King Street, probably the longest crosswalk that we have in the town. So he's going to look into that about getting a light on there. And I guess the other light that they had where the kid got killed, he wanted to check and see if the DOT brought that in line with that, also at putting a light in there at the Baptist church there.
Great.
Thanks, George. I don't know if you were in the meeting earlier when I brought that up, but I'm guessing you may be aware. Last week, someone was killed in that crosswalk.
Yeah. So Diane, just onto that piece, that I met with the district attorney relative to that crosswalk and a chance encounter that I had with her. So she's very aware of the situation, and unfortunately, deaths and major injuries are some of the driving forces behind the state doing something. As besides, the local select boards and everybody petitioning for it. So there's, the state police have been out there
Yeah.
creating, trying to recreate what happened. All of those reports get looked at, and I think what we might end up seeing there, believe it or not, is an island that kind of splits through there too, where you'll also have a crosswalk light on, because it's like George had mentioned, it's
Yeah.
such a wide
So, yeah,
street, and we'll have just another safe place for people. A walker could actually stop in the middle of the road on that island, like you see in some other
Yeah.
wide things. So there's a lot to come on that.
Okay. Good.
yeah. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, the way King Street splits to that side street by the convenience store and then continues, cars will fly and all of a sudden the last second just bail there
Yeah.
without signaling.
Yeah,
And it's
I know.
caused so many accidents and issues I've
Yeah.
seen over the 22 years
Yeah.
I've been going down there. It's
Yeah,
insane.
it's a 4-lane road when you really
Yeah.
look at
And
it.
then
And people drive really fast too.
and people literally don't stop at the end of Goldsmith Street. They pull way out. Like,
Well, it's because of the sign
Yeah.
from the church
Yeah.
you can't see.
Yeah.
They have to go
Yeah.
past it. Yeah.
yeah,
But then they're in the way of people cutting down that side street
Yeah.
and they get hit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
One last item, update on town's ADA Title II efforts.
I've got a fair bit of an update, so I'm going to request that we table this until the next one, and I'll
Okay.
bring it up then. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else we want to go through or just make a decision on our next meeting?
Second Friday of January, is that?
Second Friday of January. All right. Sounds great.
Oh, okay. Is that the 16th?
Uh,
Let me pull up my calendar. I may not be able to make that one.
hold on. That is,
Let me pull up my calendar too.
so it's the 9th. The 9th if we don't look at full week,
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
but if we're looking at full weeks, yes, Rob.
Yeah, just
Good.
very briefly,
Uh,
I want you to know that I went to the Shaker Lane Building Committee meeting this past month and formally asked them to reach out to Disability Commission to notify you folks that the Shaker Lane Group, initiative having passed is now in detailed design. And so as I'd previously discussed with you folks, involvement of Disability Commission with an aspect of do it early, and Mary Lee Mercy, Studio G architect for the project, said the time for your council best, in her opinion, is before, not after. And so I've reached out to them and trying to reach out to you folks as well, asking each group to reach out to the other one in order to start the process, in order to make accessibility something that happens. I think they're going to be in this design phase for several months, so it's not an immediate urgent matter, but just wanted to go on record and try to encourage engagement between the two groups. The second thing that I just learned on Tuesday night, I think it was, at the Park and Recreation Commission meeting, is that they're going forward with a capital request. It's either 150,000 or 175,000 to do a study of some sort involving Fay Park and redoing Fay Park. And hearing this meeting as well as some of your other meetings, I think it behooves Disability Commission that to watch whatever happens with that capital study or capital request. I don't know that it'll go forward, but if by chance it does, then I think getting your group involved with them ahead of time so that you can really draw out and get aspects much of what I just heard earlier. And those are the two items I just wanted to mention briefly.
Thank you so much, Rob. Appreciate it.
Before you log me off, Diane.
Yes.
Rob, I just let you know through the chair that that capital request has come to the Finance Committee and Select Board a few years ago, I think, when we first saw it, with what some of the plans were going to be with Fay Park, to have parking along the street, more of a parking, pull-in parking all along Foster Street there on a diagonal type situation. We've seen all kinds of possible designs. We're getting into the habit now of every time these things come before us that we're just going to have to start saying, has this gone in front of the Disability Commission? And that's kind of the language. It just has to become a natural check off, because it's just such an important thing that has historically has been looked at, but really not heavily considered. And it's a driving force behind a lot of some of the select board's decisions. And I apologize for missing that meeting leading up to town meeting, because the Chairwoman Morrison had told me that they didn't need our go ahead, because they rely on us to say if things are not acceptable, that we're going to let the select board know, and that would obviously steer a different conversation and chairman or chairwoman's remarks at town meeting for the Shaker Lane School. So that's kind of, I wanted to tie that in, because I know Rob had brought that to the committee in October. But
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, do we want to do the 9th or do we want to do the 16th? Because I know that Bill said that he had to leave.
I have a meeting at the Gardner Museum on the 16th, but the 9th I'm free. I have that available. I have it on my calendar actually already there, but
Okay.
So either way is fine. I just won't be able to make it if it's the 16th.
So do we want to do the 9th? Does the 9th work for everybody else?
Yes, for me.
Okay. George, does the 9th work for you?
What about the 16th? We got one person can't make it.
Bill
I can't, but
make
you
it.
can meet the 16th if it's better for everyone else. That's fine.
Well, I guess the 9th, I guess if it's
Okay.
better for everybody, that's
Okay.
It feels very soon, but I guess it's a month away, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll set for the 9th, and if for some reason it doesn't work, then we'll look at the 16th. All right. Look for a motion to. Go ahead.
Before you go, Madam Chair, I just wanted to say to Gary, if this request is coming in from Park and Rec, I hope it has some sort of diagram or design if you're going to reject and say you need to go before the Disability Commission, because what is it that, Fay Park, I mean, if you don't have anything that is in print to tell us what it is that you want to do, how do we determine whether or not, you need to do this for disability or you don't need to do this or whatever the case is? Because I think just coming before us just to talk, that's fine too. But if they got a plan that they want to present, that they want to go in, I think you need to have some print as to what you're looking at.
Yeah, with the capital request so tight this year's, we say it every year, but this year, with a $2 million deficit that we're going to be cleaning up, and we are, that all requests are going to have to come to us ready to go to some degree. With the more information the department heads can provide us or the departments, then the better off they're going to be with getting their capital requests on our calendar, whether it be it this year or next year. We kind of look at these things in 3-year cycles. So hopefully, yeah, they're going to be scrutinized, George. You've seen our meetings. So.
All right. All right. With that note, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Bill, okay. So can I have a vote? Bill?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Gary?
Gary's and I.
Diane's and I.
Thank you, guys.
All. Have a great weekend.